So I'm taking it from the top. Basically, I've launched Pro Tools software, and this is the same for any of the versions that you may be using. It's whether that's first Pro Tools or Pro Tools Ultimate, and you come up to the dashboard, and this allows you to create brand new sessions or create sessions from templates that are stock with the system or templates that you may have created. You can also open recent sessions or projects. And project is just a session that lives in the cloud. If you want to collaborate with one or more other people on this particular session, you would create it as a project. It pushes it all up into the cloud. And the people that you've invited to collaborate will have access to that same project or session. They can record into it, edit, mix, whatever you want to do. I'm going to create a session that lives locally on my computer system. And
Can I make a comment about projects real quick?
sure.
If you don't anticipate doing a project with somebody on the cloud, go for a create a local session. Because if for some reason you can't connect to the internet or you haven't, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I had trouble. I exported all my projects into sessions because I did have some connectivity trouble at one point.
Right. Yeah. So since a project is cloud-based, your internet connectivity, if you've got shaky internet, might impact your ability to use those. You can always convert it from a project to a session, or later on, if you've created a local session and you decide you want to, collaborate with somebody, it's easy to move it into a project. So you can always do that at any point. But for the most part, I would agree. I create local sessions until I know that I want to work with somebody via this Pro Tools cloud collaboration. So I create a session, we name it. I don't know, naming file management, not a sexy or very, fun topic, but I always try to think about, if I come across this folder in 6 months from now or 5 years from now, am I going to have a fighting chance of recognizing what this session is without having to open it up? So I'll put a date on it. I'll put, some little bit of information if I can about what it is. So when I create this new session, it creates a folder and puts the Pro Tools session documents inside there. As far as sample rate and bit depth, your sample rate may vary. This menu may vary based on what audio hardware you have connected to your computer. I typically go with 48K. We could get into a deeper topic on sample rates, but 44.1 or 48K is very common. It's kind of like a digital camera, right? The higher megapixel, the better quality. But at some point, it taxes your system more as well. So I can tell you TV and film typically is all 48K. Most music is 48K or 44.1. Some people record at higher sample rates, but we're going to go with 48K just to keep it consistent here. And 24-bit. So that's also a resolution factor of the audio that we're going to create. Down here at the bottom, prompt for location. Where do I want to put this session? I have several drives connected to my system that I can put this. So I'm going to choose prompt for location, because depending on what project I'm working or session I'm working on, I might want to put it in a different location. And I'm going to hit create, and it will say, okay, where do you want to put it? I'm going to put it on my audio drive in my Pro Tools sessions folder. And I think I have a folder down here called Zoom sessions. Yeah, I'm going to put it down there. And there we have it, a blank edit window. We've got an edit window and a mix window. Those are the two main windows of Pro Tools software. And when Pro Tools was designed originally, they tried to go with a paradigm that was familiar with these old school analog engineers, right? Old school. I'm not calling you old. No, you're not old. So you had, okay, thanks, Reed. Own it. You had a tape deck and you had a mixer. Your edit window is your tape deck and the mix window is your mixer. They're blank right now because I don't have any tracks created. So I'm going to go to track menu, new, and I'm going to create 8, just for the heck of it, mono audio tracks. And there they are, tracks 1 through 8. If I go over to the mix window, there they are. That's a mixer. It looks and operates just like any mixer you've probably used before in the past. Up is loud, down is soft. And we're going to dig in on this a little bit more. Most of the time you're going to be spending is in the edit window here. And we'll do a quick overview of the edit window right now, since this is where the bulk of your time will be. So in the far left side of the edit window is the tracks list. This gives me a list of all the tracks that I currently have in this session. They're all visible, and I know that because the dot here on the left is dark. If I click and drag on them, I can show or hide any one of these tracks or all of these tracks. And this is visually helpful to kind of clean up your screen. A hidden track is still fully functional. It plays all the audio, everything that's going on. It just visually removes it from the screen so that you could focus on something a little more easily, right? So I could hide all these tracks and I could blow this track up and focus on this, and then I can pop back out and bring all those tracks back in. So it's just a navigation thing.
And it also removes them from the mix pane, from the mix window.
That's right. So if I remove them from the edit window, they are also hidden. I shouldn't say remove. If they're hidden from the mix window, they're hidden from the mix window as well, right? And so same thing. I can bring them back quite easily. All right, so at the top, we've got left corner, we've got the modes, we've got the tools, we've got the main counter. Right now, I've got it set to bars and beats, which is ideal for music, but maybe minutes and seconds might be appropriate if you're doing other types of work, maybe audiobooks or voiceover, something like that. Time code, if you're doing audio work for TV or film, and you've got a timeline based on time code and maybe a video clip in there, that's helpful. I'm going to go back to minutes and seconds. Over here on the top section of the edit window, I have the transport and the MIDI controls visible. You may not see these on your screen. If you don't, go to the upper right corner of the edit window. There's a little menu up there, the edit window view selector, and this will allow you to show or hide different functions up there on the top of the edit window. There's a lot of empty space up there. I like to take advantage of it, so I enable the transport. I take advantage of the expanded transport, MIDI controls and output meters. This is all optional based on what you want to see. If you're on a small screen, laptop or something like that, you may not be able to see all of that. I'm on a larger screen, so I can have them all visible. It's just handy. The other option to that is having under the window menu, the transport window, which is kind of a duplicate of a lot of that stuff. But no matter where you put that transport window, it's always in the way. And I find that most people will plop it right up here on the top of the edit window. And I'm like, well, why do you do that? Let's just get rid of it and put it right there. So anyway, so there's some cool functionality. Transport, right? So that allows me to start and stop playback, go into record, all those different things. And oops, shoot, Mike just took a dive.
Can I ask you a quick question about grid?
Yeah, absolutely.
What is relative grid?
Relative grid. Okay, good question. So let's get into, well, let me finish the right side of the screen and we'll move back over to the modes where grid and slip and spot and shuffle and relative grid all apply.
Absolutely.
Okay, so at the top of the screen, we covered all that, top of the edit window. On the far right side of my edit window is the clips list. So audio clips that I record or import will live here. MIDI clips will live in here, and video clips. I have the ability to import video into Pro Tools, and can do some very basic video editing. It's not a video editor, not trying to say that, but it does have the Pro Tools Ultimate version does have the ability to have multiple video clips in the timeline. So that can be handy. So, all right, so let's go back over to the modes, right? So I'm going to record just a little bit of audio in here. Let's see what audio device I am using. I'm using my Mbox Pro. All right, cool. I think that's input number one. So I'm in the playback engine. I'm not going to go into too much detail there. That basically just allows me to choose what audio hardware I'm going to use for Pro Tools. If you have a Mac or a PC, of course, you have built-in audio inputs and outputs. You can use that as your audio I/O, or if you've got an audio interface from Avid or Focusrite or Universal Audio, any of these different audio interfaces will work. So let's see if I'm going to make sure I don't feed back here. So when I enable this track, there we go. So my mic is plugged into input number 1, and you can see my metering there on channel 1 here, right there. So I'm going to record something. Let's see. I'm going to go into record, and let's see. This is the Pro Tools 110 Assignment 11, grading checklist, song start move, memory locators, track groups, submixes and master faders, tempo maps, piano track comping, and beat detective. A bunch of gibberish. I should have read something that had made a little bit more sense. All right, so I've got an audio clip. I broke my own first rule. I didn't name the track first. So as a result, the audio file that I've created took on that track name plus a number, right? So normally I would double click on the track name and call it John VO or whatever, something appropriate. Maybe it's guitar or bass or drums or whatever it may be. And I've got my audio clip in the timeline, right, where it recorded, but it also lives over here on the far right side in the clip list. There it is. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to use the grabber tool. Double click on it, and I'm going to call it John VO dash or underscore. I'm going to maintain the same naming scheme. That's the way it should have looked, right? Okay, so I have this clip. What should I do? Smart tool, or should I do modes first? What do you think? Or do you care? Reed, you usually got a good opinion on this.
I'm familiar with them all, so go for it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go with Smart Tool. And by doing so, we'll work our way into grid and relative grid, the question that you had. So
Sure.
Smart Tool, right? So you have all of these editing tools up at the top of the left or the top of the edit window. And, you know, you can go up there and select one and come down and do your function and then go back up there. I tend to use the Smart Tool, which is a combination of these editing tools in one. And based on the location of your cursor within an audio clip, the cursor will change into different tools. Now, right now it's not doing it because I don't have Smart Tool enabled. I'm going to click on the bar right above my edit tools, and that turns on, enables Smart Tool. Now, based on the location of my cursor within this clip, you'll see that it changes into different tools. Now, this is what Chuck and I were talking about earlier. A lot of people find the Smart Tool kind of cumbersome because when you are zoomed out and you're dealing with a clip that's very small in terms of your screen resolution, the Smart Tool can be a little bit challenging. So we're going to employ a shortcut that I use 1,000 times in a day, at least 1,000. And it's the E key, but it only works if you have this little A to Z button lit right here. This focuses your QWERTY keyboard, your computer, Mac or PC, to the timeline. So I've made a selection of this clip. I hit the E key and it blows it up. Now the Smart Tool is very
functions include, but
predictable. I didn't miss that. Say that.
Sorry, I was playing my voiceover track. That was bad.
I thought it was, Chuck making a snide comment. He's good for that.
Not this time. It wasn't me this time.
Not this, but wait, there's one coming. So I've got this clip blown up to fill the screen. The selection filled the screen. I can see the entire thing. Now I can use all the Smart Tools functions quite easily. So the upper half of the clip, it's the selector tool. I can drop my cursor and start playback from that location, or I can click and drag and make a selection. At this point, it's like editing text in a word processor, right? I can make a selection, I can delete it, or I can copy it and maybe paste it down here if I want to. It's just like any other word processor, except we're using it for audio. So that's my selector tool. The bottom half of the clip is the hand tool or the grabber tool, and that allows me to grab the entire clip. I can move it if I want to, or if I grab the clip, I can move it down onto another track, whatever you want to do there. That's the grabber. Either end of the clip, it turns into the bracket or the trim tool. So I can trim off the beginning, or I can trim up the end. Upper left corner is the fade in tool. Click and drag to make a fade of whatever length you'd like. Click and drag on the upper right corner to make a fade out. And if I don't like that linear fade that it makes by default, I can click and drag within that fade to change the fade curve quite easily. And again, I'm not going up there and changing tools repeatedly. I'm doing this all within, the bounds of this one clip. I'm going to drop my cursor in the middle, and I'm going to make an edit right there. I'm going to cut it. That same A to Z shortcut button enables edit with B, the B key. B for edit. Don't ask me why. B for edit. E for explode or enlarge or expand. That's what I use to blow that clip up. B to make an edit where my cursor sits. So I'll hit B. Now I've got two adjacent clips. I want to put a crossfade between those two clips. I'll go down to the lower right or left corner of that edit. Click and drag. Now I've got a crossfade. Of course, I can tweak that crossfade type if I want, again, by using Smart Tool. So this is very handy. It allows you to get to a lot of functionality very quickly without having to, toggle through tools or go up to the top of the screen. The beauty of this now is I'm going to use that E key again. I hit E key, it takes me back out. So the E key, you make a selection, blows it up so you can see it, more importantly, and then use the Smart Tool in a very efficient way. Do what you're going to do, edit, cut, copy, paste, tweak, whatever you're going to do, and then hit the E key to put it all back, and I can see a more zoomed out view. So it's a very handy function. Chuck and I were talking about that just the other day. So Reed, your question was relative grid.
Yes, sir.
So let's get to that. So I'm going to E key that back up. I'm going to delete this crossfade. I'm going to heal that edit. And let's get into the modes, right? So up in the upper left corner, slip mode, grid mode, shuffle mode, spot. Slip mode allows
Sorry, can I just interrupt really quick?
Sure.
How did you heal that edit?
Can't tell you. That's the paid class next hour. I'm kidding. All right, so if I have an edit, I'm going to drop my cursor. I'll hit B. If both sides of this clip have not moved from their original location, let's do it with a I'm going to make a big hole there. This is why you can't hide Pro Tools. If you go to the Pro Tools menu and try to hide Pro Tools, it's not an option. Well, it is an option, but it's not a shortcut option. So all the other apps, you can do Command H to hide whatever app you're in. This Command H in Pro Tools shortcut is heal. So I've made a selection across that gap that I just created by deleting the audio, and I hit Command H and it heals it up. That only works if either side of that edit has not moved, which in this case it hasn't. But if I move this clip at all and I try to do that, it won't work. Command H won't heal. It's also available under the edit menu. And it's grayed out because the selection I've made includes two clips that are not, in their original position. Now, if I undo that, move it back, make the selection, edit, heal separation, puts it back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's helpful sometimes. Okay, so right now I'm editing dialogue, so grid mode would not be very helpful. So I'm in slip. This allows me to make selections based, without constraint, right? If I was in a musical situation, we got one more joining in. Cool. If I was in a musical situation, grid mode might be quite helpful, and having my counter set to bars and beats. I could set my grid mode to, whatever, eighth note or quarter note. And you see the vertical lines within the clip. That's my grid mode. Right now I'm in slip. Even though I can see the grid lines, I can make a selection, or I can move the clip without constraint. If I go to grid mode, now any selections I make are going to be constrained to my grid value, which currently is set to quarter note. So if I want to edit audio based on quarter notes, well, first of all, select audio based on quarter notes and then delete it or copy and paste it. This is quite handy in a musical situation. I can make quick selections based on a quarter note or an eighth note or a bar, and copy and paste and rearrange things and keep everything in time. In dialogue editing, it's not always helpful, but grid mode has two flavors, grid and relative grid. So let's say I've got this audio. I'm going to move to slip here, and I'm going to tweak this a little bit. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm setting up a situation so that relative grid mode makes sense. Okay, I'm going to zoom out a bit. All right, so let's say that let's see, where's my downbeat? There it is. So here's bar 7, there's bar 8. And I've got this vocal. This is a vocal. It's not a voiceover, it's a vocal now, right? And I've got this vocal performance here that the song starts right here at this downbeat, but there's a little vocal pickup in the beginning, right? Let me make it a little bit closer. And I'm going to trim this up. So the downbeat of the song is right there at bar 8, but right before bar 8, there's a little vocal pickup that happens just before the downbeat. And it's, a cool piece of the song. You don't want to get rid of it. But in its current situation, if I go to grid mode and I move this clip, it's going to snap the position of this clip based on that little pickup, not on the downbeat, right? So if you can see these grid lines, I don't know if you can see them very well, but here's bar 4 or beat 4, and here's beat 1 of the next one. If I move this clip in grid mode right now, the pickup is going to snap to bar 4, and it's no longer a pickup. I've just knocked the whole performance out of sync, right? So I want to, what's that?
I said,
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
I want to maintain that offset, but I want to be able to move that clip. So I want to move this clip relative to the grid that it sits on right now. So I'm going to switch that to relative grid. And you'll see that the position of the beginning of this clip is kind of in between beat 4 and beat 1 there. Now, if I move it, I can move it to the previous bar, and it will maintain that little pickup offset. Does that make any sense?
I think so, yeah.
So it will allow you to, remain in grid mode, but it will maintain the clip's position. This works for MIDI notes as well. So if you hit a MIDI note that's a little bit before the beat, you want to move it, but you don't want to hard lock it to the grid. You can move it relative to the grid, and it will maintain its position. So grid mode allows me to make a selection based on that grid. I can copy and paste on that. You'll notice if I do a slip or a grid mode and I make a selection, I hit the delete key, it leaves the hole there, which sometimes you want, right? If I go to shuffle mode, however, and I make that same selection and I hit delete, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, it will close the gap. Everything to the right of that edit will move forward by the selection amount. This is very helpful in some instances. Right now, it's perfect. I don't have any other tracks of audio or video in the session, so I don't have to worry about them being in sync with other elements in the session. If I was doing a music session, I have other tracks. I have to be very careful. If I shuffle, edit, either delete or paste, I can potentially break sync, right? The audio I've just removed is going to knock everything else out of sync. So not always helpful. In this case, it is helpful because I can go in here and I go, okay, I want to get rid of this, and I'll hit delete, and it closes the gap for me. And we'll go down here, and I would be listening to this, not eyeballing it like I am now. I want to get rid of that. I hit delete, and it closes that gap. If I want to trim it and go, you know what, that doesn't sound natural, I can trim it out a bit in shuffle mode, and it will push it out and allow, accommodate the space for that trim that I've just added some time, or if I wanted to, trim it back out. So shuffle can be very helpful, can also be very dangerous. Spot mode just allows you to place a clip at a particular location. So if you want to place this at bar, let's go, I don't know, bar 20. And there we go. Here's the clip, and it starts right at bar 20. So that's spot mode. Slip, grid, shuffle, and spot. Very helpful to know. Slip and shuffle are quite commonly used for voiceover. Grid is quite commonly used for music, but you could also use grid in like a video editing thing. You could set your counter to time code and your grid value to a frame so that you edit audio on frame boundaries. That could be quite helpful as well. All right, so that's the modes. That's Smart Tool. What else am I forgetting so far?
Did you select within a clip a selection, and did you fade? I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, so let's make a selection. I'll hit the E key to blow it up. And I want to do a fade in or a fade out, or are you talking a crossfade?
Any fade. It's just
Okay.
I select a portion of my clip, and I don't see the Smart Tool come up where I think it should. So show me that.
Okay, so Smart Tool is enabled. Put the cursor in the upper left corner, and I get the little square, the little fade. Whoops, let me get out of spot mode. I don't want that. I'll go to slip mode. Click
Let me just ask, where does it show that Smart Tool is enabled? I kind of missed that.
Good question. So at the top of the edit window in the upper left corner where all the tools are, you can select an individual tool, or you can enable Smart Tool by clicking on this little bar that covers these middle three tools, clicking on that bar, or you can hit F7 and F8 on your keyboard simultaneously. That will do it. Smart Tool.
Okay.
Got it? Yeah. So to do the fade, I'm going to select that fade in upper left corner.
I want you to select the middle of the waveform.
Okay, like that?
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing to fade. I need an edit. So I can do a crossfade. I'm going to hit the B key to make an edit at the beginning and the end of that selection. Hit B.
Okay, you have to make it its own selection.
It basically has to be two adjacent clips, right? I'm crossfading two clips. In this case, it's the same clip that I've cut. So I can go down to the lower left or right corner and click and drag, and there's a crossfade between two clips.
I see it now. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, you have to make it its own clip.
Yeah.
Just selecting it of its own does not make it work. You have to hit B, make it its own clip. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so I'm going to undo that. We'll go back there. I've gotten rid of the fade in, the fade out, and the crossfade. I'm going to get into Clip Gain. So this is really helpful, especially for dialogue and vocals, right? So the voice, I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit the E key, blow that back out, and hit the E key again so that my selection better fits the screen. This is a perfect example of dialogue or vocals. There's quite a range in the volume level. We've got some high peaks and we have some lower bits that are not quite as loud. This is a great way to level this out. Clip gain is volume at the clip level rather than volume at the track level. I can go into each clip. I'm going to back out here and I'm going to duplicate that a couple times. Let's do that. Make my selection, hit E key. Whoops. And so I've got the same clip duplicated a few times. You'll notice at the lower left corner of each clip, I can grab this little teeny fader down here at the bottom and adjust the volume on a per clip basis. I'm going to change my preference here because my E key doesn't fill the screen. I'm going to go to extreme because that's just the kind of guy that I am. All right. So now
Where did you find the little volume control for the clip?
in the lower left corner, do you not see a little down here at the lower left corner? If you don't see a numeric value, default it's 0 dB, and the little teeny fader icon, go up to the view menu at the top of the screen and go to clip gain info should be checked. If that's not checked, click on it, and that will give you, I'll uncheck it. So you may have a clip with nothing down in the lower left corner. You can go to view, clip gain info, and then you get the volume, clip gain volume fader in the lower left corner. And that way,
Thank you.
Adjust the gain on a per clip basis, right? So this is considered static clip gain because I'm changing the gain of the entire clip equally, right? I can get in deeper, which is really what I need to do on this dialogue here. So I'm going to select the clip. I'm going to hit the E key once and twice, blow it back up. Now I'm focused on this one clip. I want to get in here and affect the levels within this clip. So static clip gain is not going to do it for me. I'm going to go back to that same menu, view, clip gain line. And this line that's going through the middle of the clip represents the clip gain volume. So if I grab that little teeny fader at the bottom again, you'll see that go up and down. And the cool thing about clip gain is that you can see it visually changes the level of the waveform so that you can visually see what's going on. So like right here, I can see, okay, here's a bit of audio that's a little bit lower than everything else. So I'm going to make a selection of it. I have my clip gain line visible. So now I can go within the clip, gain that up. And I'm visually just lining it up with the rest of the audio in here. Now I've made some changes here and they're very abrupt volume changes. It's a right angle. I don't like to do that because it usually sounds kind of weird. So I'm going to click and grab these little breakpoints and just kind of ramp them out so that it fades up and fades down. It's not an abrupt gain change. And I'll come over here. Now here's some volume, some audio that's quite hot. I'm going to take that and gain it down. Again, I'm using Smart Tools, so based on where I put my cursor within this clip, I don't have to go change tools. I'm making a selection by putting the cursor at the top half of the clip to make my selection, and then placing the cursor in the middle of the selection towards the middle of the clip. I get the clip gain trim tool.
Very cool.
Take that down, and I'm visually kind of doing it. Now I would come in here and I'm going to use a T key to zoom out. I've got this little abrupt thing. I'm going to option click on these breakpoints to clean those up, get rid of them. I'm going to ramp this one out so it's not a right angle. Ramp that one up. I'm using the R and the T key to zoom in farther, zoom in and zoom out. And again, this is a function of that A to Z button here. So it's just R and T. I don't need any modifiers, no control or shift keys to be held with that. R zooms out and T zooms in. So I'm using that in conjunction with my E key that blows it up. So visually, I've got this a little bit leveled out. I can see over here, I'm going to drop my cursor, zoom in a bit. This one's loud. I can see that. I make that selection, take it down. This is a little bit loud. I'll probably take that down. And
so again, when you're taking that down, I'm seeing the cursor move and change its icon. Are you clicking and holding anything while you're doing that?
I'm only clicking and holding when I'm making the change. So like right now, I'm not clicking and holding. I'm going to make a selection, click and hold to make the selection. Place the cursor in the middle to get to the clip gain trim. Click and hold or click and drag up.
Got it.
Now, if I want to come in here and modify these little breakpoints, there's no modifier. I'm just clicking and dragging on those little breakpoints to kind of, move them to another location so that the gain ramps up or ramps down. And I would be listening to this. I'm not stopping and listening to this like I should, because sometimes you this is like a fairly abrupt gain change right here. And by listening to it, you might hear that it's obvious and it might be too much. So I might need to come in here and, maybe lessen it a little bit and ramp it up a little bit and just kind of clean it up, massage it a little bit so it doesn't sound so, stair-stepped in terms of volume. So the goal here is to visually level out these waveforms and, get a consistent level for this dialogue. That's the goal. But also I can use it for other things. Like right here, I can see this is probably a breath. I can tell by looking at the waveform. And I don't know, some people like to remove breaths completely. Some people like to leave them in. It's natural. And this applies both to, vocals or dialogue. Some people will keep them in, but they want to reduce the gain on them so that the breath isn't so prominent. I'll make a selection here on this breath and I'll just knock the gain down a little bit. And again, I'll ramp it out a little bit so that it's not stair-stepped. And again, I would listen to this. Your ear is the ultimate test, right? So here's the clip, and I can see that this one probably needs to be tweaked down. I can see the waveform come down a little bit. And here's another one on the beginning. I'm going to go back up here, knock that one down, and I'm going through it quickly. And now I can take the overall gain up and not worry about clipping. So I've leveled it all out, increased the gain. It's going to stand out more. It's going to sit in the mix much better. We've kind of removed a breath in the middle there. The cool thing about this is it's not destructive. So if I decide later on that I don't like this, I come back to this tomorrow and go, what was I thinking? I can either right click on it and go clip gain bypass, and basically just mutes those clip gain moves that I just wrote. And I'm back to the original clip. And if I want to, I can unbypass it and bring that back, or I can clip gain, clear it, get rid of it altogether. It's gone. Now I'm flatline clip gain. And of course you can undo that. So all of these clip gain moves are happening in real time. So it's, non-destructive. A lot of people are worried about making edits and I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to, crank it up too high and make it distort. You don't have to worry about damaging your audio using clip gain because it's all real time. You can undo it multiple times. You can select it and get rid of it. If you decide you don't like it like this, you could come in here and make a selection and clip gain, clear it, get rid of it altogether. So it's very flexible, non-committal. We all love that, right? And quite effective. This is a huge help. So other things that I might use this for, obviously to level out a vocal or a dialogue performance, but in my home studio here, my recording environment is not ideal. So in between phrases that I may record, I might pick up some noise from outside or the neighbor's dog or whatever. And I can come in between my phrases, and like I did with the breath, just knock it down. I might take it down 15 dB or 20 dB. And again, I would ramp it so it's not a right angle. And this is kind of cool because it reduces the volume, but it doesn't create like a wide open gap. If I were to just make that selection and hit delete, I could remove it altogether, but it would sound very unnatural. You'd have all these, blatant silence bits in there that would not sound good. Now, if I had a music bed underneath, that could work. But if it's just dialogue by itself, an audio book or, spoken word, having these empty silence bits would sound very, very unnatural. So I'm going to undo it. You can reduce those noise in between phrases quite effectively. little bit tedious, but that's what you get for not having an ideal recording environment. So, all right, so that's Glip Gain. A couple of shortcuts that I wanted to cover. I call them the universal. Oh, let me do this too. I have my keyboard shortcut list on my desktop. I'm going to drop them into the chat window here, see if we can pass them on to you. There's a Mac and a PC version. Whoops, no, I have to do it this way. File and desktop. Let's see, Mac. Oh, I can only do one at a time. There's the Mac version. If somebody can double check the Zoom group chat window. What did I put in there? I put the Mac first. Let's do the Windows. And let me know if you can receive these. It's basically a PDF doc of my favorite top 10 keyboard shortcuts. We've used a bunch of them already. My biggie here is this E key, right? We use that, and R and T to zoom in and zoom out. I was using that. And of course, undo. I use that quite extensively. But the shortcuts I was just talking about are the universal shortcuts. I call them universal because they're the same for any other app, right? So on a Mac, to save your session, it's Command S. On a Windows machine, it's Control S. Undo is Command Z or Control Z. Cut, copy, and paste, X, C, and V. Same as, Microsoft Word or any other app. Command C or Control C to copy, Command V or Control V to paste, duplicate. All those shortcuts apply to audio in this timeline. So if I make a selection, Command C to copy, I'll drop my cursor, Command V to paste, Command D to duplicate. It's all the same, right? Command S, save and save often, save frequently. Most people get into the habit of just hitting Command S often. It's a very good habit to get into. Shortcuts. All right, so playback and record. Playback is spacebar. Record, you can go into record once you've enabled a track by hitting record on the transport and then hitting the play button. Another way to do that, if you have a full-size QWERTY keyboard, when I say full-size like this, it's got the numeric keypad section.
Applicable.
Which is good. There's a lot of really cool piano track. Oops. Beat, tempo maps, piano track comping, and beat. We'll hit stop. How about that? We're like, who is talking right over the middle of it? Another way to go into record using that numeric keypad section is just number 3. So you record, enable the track that you want to record on, hit number 3, and you're in record. Spacebar to stop. Right? Another handy shortcut. If you want to solo this track, you've got a bunch of other tracks in here. Let's do this. I'm going to hit my E key, come back out. I'm going to copy this. Copy, paste. So I got a whole bunch of garbage going on, let's say, in this session. And I only want to hear one track at a time. Whatever track your cursor sits on, in this case, the top track, John VO, Shift S will solo that track. This is the same for Windows. Shift S. Shift S will solo, Shift S will unsolo. If you want to solo 2 or more tracks, make sure your cursor sits on as many tracks as you want to solo, Shift S. Shift M, as in Mary, to mute. Shift R to record enable those tracks. You can basically toggle them on or off. So whatever track or tracks your cursor sits on, in this case, my selection includes the top 3 tracks. Shift S will apply to those 3 tracks to solo, Shift R to record, Shift M to mute. Boy, that put everybody to sleep.